The great hall of the Galactic Council was filled with light. Thousands of beings from 47 different species sat in their seats, arranged in a massive circle that rose toward a ceiling made of pure crystal. The crystal showed the stars outside, a reminder that this place, Nexus Prime, was the center of all civilized space. High Speaker Molth stood at the center of the hall. He was old, even by the standards of his long-lived species. His gray skin was wrinkled, and his 4 eyes moved slowly across the crowd. He had led the council for 300 years, and he believed he had seen everything the galaxy could offer. "Friends," he said, his voice carried by invisible speakers to every corner of the room. "We gather today to celebrate 100 years of peace. 100 years since the last Great War. 100 years of progress, trade, and cooperation." The crowd made sounds of approval. Different species clapped, clicked, or hummed in their own ways. They were proud of what they had built. The Galactic Council controlled 10,000 worlds, and not a single major conflict had disturbed their order in a century. But not everyone in the hall was celebrating. In a private room behind the main chamber, Ambassador Vecca of the Helix Dominion sat with 6 other representatives. They were the true powers of the council, the species that made decisions while others only voted. Vecca's body was tall and thin, covered in dark blue scales. His eyes were completely black, showing no emotion. "The human situation requires attention," Vecca said quietly. The others nodded. They all knew what he meant. Humanity had been discovered 80 years ago. A young species from a small planet called Earth. At first, the council had watched them with curiosity. Humans were strange creatures. They lived short lives, barely 100 years, yet they moved with desperate energy. They built quickly, expanded quickly, and learned quickly, too quickly. "They now have 12 colony worlds," said another ambassador, a creature made of floating crystals. "Their population has grown to 15 billion. Their technology improves every decade," added a third, whose body was wrapped in metal armor. "They have begun asking questions about our FTL drives. They want to know why we will not share the designs." Vecca made a soft hissing sound. "Because if we give humans advanced technology, they will become a threat. You have all read the reports. They are violent by nature. Their entire history is war after war. They cannot help themselves." This was true, in a way. Human history was filled with conflict. But what the council did not understand was that humans also learned from their wars. Each conflict made them stronger, smarter, more united. The council saw violence as a sign of primitive thinking. They did not see it as evolution. "The containment protocols are working," Vecca continued. "We have limited their expansion. We have denied them key technologies. We have funded opposition groups within their own colonies to keep them divided. In another 50 years, they will collapse from internal pressure. We will not need to fire a single shot." The others agreed. It was a perfect plan. Clean, quiet. The humans would destroy themselves, and the galaxy would be safe. But in the corner of the room, one being remained silent. Historian Pela was ancient, older even than High Speaker Molth. Pela had spent a lifetime studying species, watching them rise and fall. And something about the humans worried Pela deeply. "You are making a mistake," Pela said finally. The ambassadors turned to look at the old historian. "Humans are not like other species," Pela continued. "When you put pressure on most civilizations, they break. When you put pressure on humans, they adapt. They become harder, more focused, more dangerous." Vecca laughed, a cold sound. "They have 200 ships, most of them outdated. We have 8,000 in this sector alone. What can they possibly do?" Pela did not answer. But the historian's many eyes were dark with worry. Far across the galaxy, in the Sol system, Admiral Teon Park stood on the bridge of a ship that was not supposed to exist. The Wrath of Terra was enormous. It stretched for nearly 3 kilometers, a mountain of metal and weapons and engines. It was painted black, designed to disappear against the void of space. And it was just one ship among thousands. Admiral Tayan was a tall man in his 50s, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too much death. He had served in the military for 30 years, rising through the ranks during a time when humanity struggled just to survive. He remembered the early days, when humans thought the galaxy would welcome them. He remembered the hope in people's eyes. That hope had died long ago. "Admiral," said a voice behind him, "Dr. Lin is ready with her report." Tayan turned to see Captain Una Beak standing at attention. She was younger than him, in her early 40s, with sharp features and black hair pulled back tight. She commanded the Wrath of Terra, and there was no one Tayan trusted more. "Send her in," he said. Dr. Hannah Lim entered the bridge carrying a small data device. She was a small woman with glasses and nervous hands, but her mind was one of the sharpest humanity had ever produced. For 10 years, she had led a secret team dedicated to one purpose: finding proof of what the galaxy had done to humanity. "We have everything," Hannah said, her voice shaking slightly. "Communications between council members planning the embargo. Records of assassinations against our diplomats. And this." She pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared. It showed Ambassador Vecca speaking to a group of scientists. The audio was clear. "The biological agent is ready for testing. Deploy it on the human colony of New Helsinki. Make it look like a natural plague. They must never know it was us." Tayan's hands tightened into fists. New Helsinki. 40,000 people had died there 5 years ago from a mysterious disease. His own brother had been among them. "There is more," Hannah said quietly. "Secret agreements to eventually destroy Earth itself. They never intended to let us survive. They were just waiting for the right moment." Tayan closed his eyes. For a long moment, he said nothing. The bridge was silent, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. When he opened his eyes again, they were cold. "How many ships do we have?" he asked. 3,247, Una answered. "All fully armed. All crews ready." Lieutenant Wujing Kong, the communications officer, looked up from his station. He was young, barely 30, but he had proven himself many times. "Sir, the jump drives are charged. We can reach Nexus Prime in 6 hours." Tayan looked at the star map displayed on the main screen. Nexus Prime, the heart of the Galactic Council. The place where humanity's fate had been decided in secret meetings and quiet lies. "They think we are weak," Tayan said softly. "They think we will break under pressure. They think we do not know what they have done." He paused. "They are wrong." He turned to face his crew. Every officer on the bridge was watching him, waiting. "Send the signal to all ships. We jump in 1 hour." His voice was steady, certain. "The galaxy wants a war. We will give them one they will never forget." The fleet began to move, 3,000 warships turning toward the stars. In the darkness of space, humanity was finally ready to answer. The Galactic Council session had entered its 3rd hour when the first alarm sounded. High Speaker Mulf stopped mid-sentence, his 4 eyes blinking in confusion. In 300 years, he had never heard that particular alarm inside the council chambers. It was the sound of a spatial emergency, a warning that something was entering the Nexus system through abnormal means. "What is happening?" demanded Ambassador Vecca, rising from his seat. Fleet Commander Oris, a massive creature covered in natural armor, checked his communication device. His face changed from confusion to disbelief. "There is a disturbance at the edge of the system. A large spatial disturbance. Something is coming through." That is impossible, Vecca said. No one can jump directly into council space. The distances are too great. The navigation calculations would take months. Nevertheless, Horus replied, his voice now shaking, something is coming. The great crystal ceiling of the council chamber flickered. Its normal view of peaceful stars was replaced by a sensor display, showing the edge of the Nexus system. At first, there was nothing but darkness and distant lights. Then space itself began to tear open. The tear was massive, stretching across thousands of kilometers. Light bent and twisted around its edges. And from within that wound in reality, ships began to emerge. They came in perfect formation, row after row, line after line. Black ships that seemed to absorb the light around them. Small fighters flew alongside massive carriers. Destroyers and cruisers moved in coordinated patterns. And at the center, dreadnoughts the size of small moons pushed through the tier, their weapons already glowing with power. The council chamber fell completely silent. Count them, High Speaker Molth whispered. The numbers appeared on the display. 3,247 ships, all of human design, all fully armed and operational. That is impossible, Vecca repeated, but his voice had lost all its confidence. They only had 200 ships. Our intelligence confirmed this. Historian Pela stood slowly from the observer's gallery. The ancient being's many eyes were fixed on the display. Your intelligence was wrong, Pela said quietly. They let you see what they wanted you to see. On the bridge of the Wrath of Terra, Captain Una Beak coordinated the fleet's deployment. Ent with calm precision. Her hands moved across holographic controls, sending orders to thousands of ships simultaneously. Around her, officers worked in focused silence. All ships have completed transition, reported Lieutenant Wujin Kang. No casualties. No mechanical failures. We are in perfect formation. Admiral Teon nodded. He stood at the center of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, watching the distant glow of Nexus Prime on the main screen. The capital of the galaxy. The place where aliens had decided humanity's fate without ever asking permission. Begin surrounding the planet, Teon ordered. Defensive formations only. No one fires unless I give the command. The fleet moved like a single creature. Ships flowed around Nexus Prime, creating a sphere of metal and weapons that completely enclosed the world. Any vessel trying to leave or enter would have to pass through human lines. Admiral, Una said, I am receiving hundreds of communication requests from the Council. They are demanding to know our intentions. Let them wait, Tyon replied. Let them feel, for just a few minutes, what it is like to not know what will happen to them. In the council chamber, chaos was spreading. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting, screaming, demanding explanations. Some tried to flee, rushing toward exits that were suddenly blocked by security forces. Others sat frozen in their seats, unable to process what they were seeing. High Speaker Molth raised his hands, trying to restore order. Everyone, please remain calm. I am sure there is an explanation for this. The humans are perhaps conducting a military exercise. A show of strength. Nothing more. A show of strength? Shouted one ambassador, a small creature with bright yellow skin. They have surrounded our capital world with a war fleet. This is an invasion. We must call our own fleets, Vecca said, his voice sharp with urgency. Every ship in the sector must come to Nexus Prime immediately. We will crush these humans and teach them their place. Fleet Commander Horus was already sending messages. I have contacted 12 military powers. Ships are being mobilized now. We will have 8,000 vessels here within hours. Then we have nothing to fear, Molth said, though his voice trembled. We outnumber them significantly. This will be dealt with quickly. But even as he spoke, the main display flickered again. A human face appeared on every screen in the council chamber. The face belonged to Admiral Taeon Park. He did not look angry. He did not look threatening. His expression was completely calm, which somehow made it worse. "Members of the Galactic Council," Taeon began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "My name is Admiral Taeon Park, Supreme Commander of the United Earth Fleet. I am not here to negotiate. I am here to inform you of what you have done and what will happen because of it." The chamber went silent again. "For 80 years, humanity tried to be your friends. We came to the stars with open hands and hopeful hearts. We believed the galaxy would welcome us. Instead, you conspired to destroy us." The display changed. Documents appeared, communications, recordings. Proof of every crime the Council had committed against humanity. Trade agreements designed to cripple human economies. Assassinations disguised as accidents. And finally, the biological weapon deployed on New Helsinki. 40,000 people, Taeon said softly. 40,000 innocent lives, taken by a disease you created. Women, children, families. You killed them all. And you thought we would never know. Ambassador Vecca tried to speak, to deny, to explain. But his voice caught in his throat. "You believed you could contain us," Taeon continued. "You believed we were too primitive, too divided, too weak to ever threaten your great civilization. You were wrong." He leaned forward slightly, and for the first time, something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "You have committed acts of war against the United Earth government. Humanity officially recognizes a state of war between ourselves and all parties involved in these crimes. You have 1 standard hour to surrender all conspirators to human custody for trial. If you refuse, we will consider this entire station a hostile military target." High Speaker Molf finally found his voice. "You cannot do this. You are threatening the heart of galactic civilization. You are outnumbered 3 to 1 when our fleets arrive. Stand down immediately or face total destruction." Admiral Taeon smiled. It was not a warm expression. "Then call your fleets," he said calmly. "Bring every ship you have. Combine your forces, unite your empires. We will wait." Lieutenant Wu Jin Kong ended the transmission. The council chamber was left staring at empty screens. Una Beak turned to Admiral Taeon. "Sir, they will bring everything they have. They will not surrender." "I know," Taeon replied. "Our intelligence suggests they can assemble 8,000 ships within 6 hours." "I know." Una paused. "Then we will be fighting outnumbered." Admiral Taeon looked out at the stars, at the distant glow of Nexus Prime, at the galaxy that had tried to kill his people. "We have always been outnumbered," he said quietly. "We have always been underestimated. That is their mistake, not ours." He turned back to face his crew. "Every officer, every soldier, every pilot in this fleet knows why we are here. They know what was done to us, and they know what we are capable of." He straightened his shoulders. "Let them come. Let them bring their thousands of ships and their ancient technologies and their arrogant confidence. We will show them what humanity truly is." His voice hardened. "We will show them that the galaxy should have been afraid of us from the very beginning." The fleet held its position, silent and waiting. Across the galaxy, alien war machines began their journey toward Nexus Prime. The largest battle in galactic history was about to begin. And humanity was ready. 6 hours passed in tense silence. The human fleet remained perfectly still around Nexus Prime. A ring of black warships that did not move, did not communicate, did not show any sign of fear. Inside the council chamber, High Speaker Molth watched the sensor displays with growing confidence. Ships were arriving from across the sector, emerging from jump points in waves. The Helix Dominion sent 2,000 vessels. The Crystal Collective contributed 1,500. The Iron March provided another 1,000. More came from a dozen other species, each eager to prove their power dot by the 6th hour. 8,312 alien warships had assembled around the human fleet. They formed a massive wall of metal and energy, surrounding the humans from every direction. The display showed the comparison clearly: aliens in blue, humans in red. The blue dots vastly outnumbered the red. "It is over," Ambassador Vecca said with satisfaction. "They are trapped. They cannot escape, and they cannot win. Their fleet will be destroyed, and then we will deal with Earth itself." Fleet Commander Oris opened a communication channel to the human flagship. "Human vessels, you are completely surrounded. Your situation is hopeless. Surrender now, and we will show mercy. Continue this foolishness, and you will be annihilated." There was a long pause. Then Admiral Teon's voice came through, calm as ever. "You speak of mercy," he said, "but you have never shown us any. You speak of annihilation, but that is what you planned for us from the beginning. Today you will learn something important, Fleet Commander. You will learn what humans do when there is no escape." The transmission ended. On the bridge of the Wrath of Terra, Admiral Teon turned to Captain Una Beak. "Status report." "All ships report ready," Una replied. "Weapon systems charged. Fighter squadrons standing by. The crews are prepared. And General Choi? His ground forces are in position. The moment we create an opening, they will launch." Teon nodded slowly. He looked at the tactical display, at the massive alien fleet that surrounded them. 8,000 ships against 3,000. By any normal calculation, the humans should lose. But this was not a normal situation. "Signal all ships," Teon ordered. "Execute Protocol Songbird." The order spread through the fleet in seconds. And then the human ships began to move. The aliens expected a standard battle formation. They expected the humans to form defensive lines, to concentrate their firepower, to fight in predictable patterns. Every species in the galaxy fought the same way, more or less. Tactics had been refined over thousands of years into an accepted science. Humanity had different ideas. The human fleet did not form lines. It fragmented, breaking into hundreds of smaller groups that scattered in every direction. Ships moved in patterns that seemed random, chaotic, impossible to predict. They flowed around each other like water, never stopping, never holding position. Fleet Commander Oris stared at his tactical display in confusion. "What are they doing? This makes no sense." "They are abandoning all formation discipline." "It does not matter," Vecca said impatiently. "Destroy them." The alien fleet opened fire. Thousands of weapons released their energy simultaneously, creating a storm of destruction that should have torn the human ships apart. But the human ships were not where the weapons hit. Their movements, which seemed random, were actually precisely calculated. AI systems aboard each human vessel predicted enemy firing patterns and moved accordingly. Shots that should have been direct hits passed through empty space as human ships twisted away at the last moment. And then the humans fired back. Their targeting was perfect. Every shot hit something vital. Command ships lost their bridges. Carriers saw their launch bays destroyed. Weapon platforms exploded as human missiles struck their power cores. The coordinated fire was devastating, focused on breaking the alien fleet's ability to organize. In the first 3 minutes, 200 alien ships were destroyed. Human losses, 11. "Impossible," Oris whispered. "Their accuracy is impossible." Captain Una Beak commanded the Wrath of Terra through the battle with cold focus. Her orders came fast and precise, each one calculated to cause maximum damage with minimum exposure. The great dreadnought moved through the enemy fleet like a predator, its weapons carving paths of destruction. "Target their flagship," she ordered. "All forward batteries." The wrath of Terra's main weapons fired. Beams of energy that burned brighter than stars cut across space, striking the alien command vessel in multiple locations. The ship's shields flared, held for a moment, and then collapsed. The vessel split apart in a silent explosion. Fleet Commander Oris watched his command ship die from a secondary vessel. His communications were flooded with reports of disaster. Ships were being destroyed faster than he could track. The alien fleet was falling apart. "Fall back," he shouted. "All ships retreat and regroup." But retreat was not so simple. The human fleet had positioned itself to cut off escape routes. Every direction the aliens tried to run, they found human ships waiting. The chaos of the human tactics had hidden a deeper strategy. They were hurting the enemy, controlling their movements, driving them toward positions of weakness. General Sun Ho Choi watched the battle from a troop transport positioned behind the main line. He was an older man, scarred from decades of ground combat, patient as stone. His moment was coming. "Sir," reported one of his officers, "the enemy formation is breaking. We have a clear path to the council station." Choi nodded. "Launch all dropships. Tell the Marines to prepare for boarding." Hundreds of small vessels shot forward from human carriers, moving so fast that alien point defense systems could not track them. They carried 10,000 elite human soldiers, each one trained for exactly this kind of operation. Back on the Wrath of Terra, Lieutenant Wu Jing Kong monitored communications from across the galaxy. His station was filled with intercepted alien transmissions, and what he heard brought a grim smile to his face. "Admiral," he reported, "the enemy fleets are breaking communication protocols. They cannot coordinate their attacks. Half of them are arguing with each other about command authority." Tayan nodded. This was expected. The alien alliance was held together by politics, not trust. Under pressure, old rivalries and suspicions were tearing them apart. "Continue pressing the attack," he ordered. "Do not give them time to reorganize." The battle continued for another 14 minutes. When it finally ended, the results were clear. 1,400 alien ships had been destroyed or disabled. Another 2,000 had fled, jumping away to other systems without waiting for orders. The remaining vessels were scattered, damaged, unable to mount any organized resistance. Human losses. 89 ships. In the council chamber, High Speaker Molth stared at the tactical display in horror. The blue dots that represented his mighty alliance had shrunk dramatically. The red dots of the human fleet remained strong, still surrounding Nexus Prime, still in perfect formation. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" Historian Pela stood beside him, watching the display with ancient eyes. "I tried to warn you," Pela said softly. "You did not listen. But they are primitives. They have only had space travel for 80 years. Our civilizations have existed for millennia. And in those millennia," Pela replied, "your species forgot what war truly means. You made it clean, predictable, civilized. You followed rules and traditions that everyone agreed upon. But humans never forgot." The historian turned to face Molth directly. "Their entire history is war. Not ritual combat, not controlled conflict, but true, desperate survival war. They learned lessons in blood that your kind cannot imagine." Ambassador Vecca had stopped talking. His scales had turned pale, and his hands were shaking. Through the great crystal ceiling, he could see human dropships approaching the council station. "They are coming," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "They are coming for us." On the lead dropship, General Sun Ho Choi checked his weapon one final time. Around him, hundreds of Marines in powered armor waited in silence. They were the tip of humanity's spear, ready to strike at the heart of the galaxy. "Remember," Choi said over the communication channel, "we are here for justice, not revenge. Take the conspirators alive if possible. Minimize civilian casualties. But if anyone resists, put them down hard and fast." The Marines confirmed the order. The dropship's doors opened, and General Choi led his troops into the council station. Behind him, the stars burned with the wreckage of the galaxy's greatest military alliance. Humanity had won the battle. Now it was time to win the peace. The doors of the council chamber exploded inward. Metal and stone flew across the room as human Marines in powered armor stormed through the opening. Their movements were fast, precise, and terrifying. Within seconds, they had secured every exit and surrounded the assembled representatives. General Son Ho Choi walked through the smoke and debris with calm authority. His armor was different from the others, marked with the insignia of a commanding officer. In his hand, he carried a simple sidearm, though he had not fired it. He did not need to. The battle was already won. "No one moves," Choi announced, his voice amplified by his armor speakers. "Any attempt to flee or resist will be met with force. Cooperate, and you will be treated fairly." The alien representatives froze in their seats. Some were trembling. Others had closed their eyes, unable to face what was happening. A few tried to stand, to protest, but one look at the armed Marines convinced them to stay still. Ambassador Vecca was attempting to reach a hidden exit behind his seat when two Marines blocked his path. Their weapons were pointed directly at his chest. "Ambassador Vecca of the Helix Dominion," one Marine said flatly, "you are under arrest for crimes against humanity. Do not resist." Vecca's face twisted with fury. "You cannot do this. I am a representative of a sovereign power. I have diplomatic immunity. This is against every law of the galaxy." General Choi walked toward him slowly. "Your immunity ended when you decided to murder our people. The laws of the galaxy did not protect humanity when you poisoned New Helsinki. They will not protect you now." The Marines seized Vecca and bound his hands. He screamed protests and threats, but no one listened. One by one, the other conspirators were identified and arrested. 6 ambassadors, 12 military officials, and numerous aides were pulled from their seats and gathered in the center of the chamber. They represented some of the most powerful species in the galaxy, beings who had controlled the fate of worlds for centuries. Now they stood helpless, surrounded by human soldiers. High Speaker Molth remained in his position at the center of the hall. His old body was shaking, but he did not try to run. When General Choi approached him, he simply bowed his head. "I knew," Molth said quietly. "I knew what they were doing to humanity. I did not participate directly, but I knew, and I did nothing to stop it." Choi studied the old alien for a long moment. "Then you will be judged as well. Not as a criminal, perhaps, but as a witness. Your testimony will help establish the truth." A communication signal interrupted the silence. Lieutenant Wujing Kong's voice came through Choi's helmet. "General, Admiral Park's shuttle is approaching. He requests permission to enter the chamber." "Granted," Choi replied. Minutes later, Admiral Taeyon Park walked into the council chamber. Behind him came Captain Yuna Beek and Dr. Hana Lim. They moved past the rows of terrified aliens without looking at them. Heading straight for the central platform, Tae Hun looked at the gathered conspirators, at the broken doors, at the Marines standing guard. His expression showed no satisfaction, no triumph. If anything, he looked tired. "Is this all of them?" he asked General Choi. "All who were present on the station. There are others across the galaxy. We have their names." Taeyon nodded slowly. He turned to face the full council, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "You are probably wondering what happens next. You are probably expecting revenge. fire and blood, and the destruction of your worlds. That is what you would do, after all. That is what your species had done to each other for thousands of years. He paused, letting the words sink in. We are not you. Dr. Hana Lim stepped forward, activating a holographic display. Images appeared in the air, showing documents, recordings, and evidence of every crime committed against humanity. These individuals will face trial, she announced. A proper trial, with evidence presented, with defense arguments heard, with judgment based on facts rather than anger. This is how humanity handles justice. We do not execute without proof. We do not punish without process. Ambassador Vecca laughed bitterly. You expect us to believe that? You brought a war fleet to our capital. You destroyed our ships. And now you speak of fair trials? Admiral Taihan walked toward him. They stood face to face, the human commander and the alien conspirator. Yes, Taihan said simply. Because we are better than you. Because W. You refused to become the monsters you tried to make us. You wanted to destroy humanity? Congratulations. You have created the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever seen. But our danger comes from our strength, not from our cruelty. He turned away from Vecca. Humanity came to the stars, hoping to find friends. We found enemies instead. Enemies who smiled at us while plotting our extinction. But we survived. We built in secret. We prepared for the war you are always planning to start. Captain Unibeak received a message and quietly informed the Admiral. Sir, reports are coming in from across the galaxy. Our sleeper cells have activated. Military targets belonging to the conspiracy have been neutralized. Communication networks are under our control. The council members who heard this exchange went pale. Sleeper cells. Agents planted throughout the galaxy for years, waiting for this moment. Humanity had not simply built a fleet in secret. They had built an entire invisible army. High Speaker Molth finally spoke again. What do you want from us? What will satisfy humanity? Name your terms. Admiral Taiyan considered the question carefully. The Galactic Council is dissolved, he said finally. It was built on lies and maintained through oppression. It cannot be reformed. A new organization will be created, one where every species has equal standing, where no one can conspire against others in secret. And who will lead this new organization? Molth asked. No one, Taiyan replied. That was your mistake. You created hierarchies of power that allowed corruption to flourish. The new system will have no supreme leader, no inner circle of dominant species. Decisions will be made openly, with full transparency. He looked around the chamber at the thousands of beings watching him. Humanity does not want to rule the galaxy. We never did. We wanted to explore, to learn, to grow alongside other civilizations. You denied us that chance. Now we will create the galaxy we should have found from the beginning. Dr. Hana Lim added, all species involved in the conspiracy will pay reparations to humanity. Not as punishment, but as restoration. The colonies that were harmed will be rebuilt. The families who lost loved ones will be compensated. And most importantly, the truth will be taught to every young person across the galaxy. They will know what was done. They will know why it must never happen again. The prisoners were led away, surrounded by human marines. Ambassador Vika was still shouting accusations and threats, but his voice grew fainter as he disappeared through the broken doors. General Sun Ho Choi approached Admiral Taiyan. What about the remaining alien fleets? Some have surrendered, but others are still out there, scattered and leaderless. They will be given a choice, Taiyan said. Join the new peace, or be treated as hostiles. I expect most will choose peace. They have seen what happens when they choose otherwise. Captain Unibeak looked out through the crystal ceiling at the stars beyond. Human ships still surrounded Nexus Prime, silent guardians of a new era. "It is strange," she said quietly. "We spent 30 years preparing for war, building ships, training soldiers, planning for this exact moment. And now that it is here, I feel nothing but exhaustion." Admiral Teon stood beside her. "That is because you are not a conqueror, Yuna. None of us are. We did not want this. We simply refused to die quietly." He watched a human patrol pass by the station, their ships moving in perfect formation. "Tomorrow, we begin building something better. Treaties, institutions, laws that apply to everyone equally. It will take decades, maybe centuries. There will be setbacks and challenges and species who resist the change. And humanity will face it all," Yuna said. "Yes," Teon agreed. "Because that is what we do. We face things. We adapt. We survive." He allowed himself a small smile. "And occasionally, we remind the galaxy why it should have been nicer to us in the first place. The battle was over. The war was won. But the real work was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Nexus Prime. The galaxy was different now. Not completely transformed, but changing in ways that would have seemed impossible a year ago. The old council was gone, its chamber converted into a museum where visitors could see the evidence of what had been done to humanity. The new Terran Accords had replaced it, a framework for cooperation that gave no species special privilege. Admiral Teon Park stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean, watching the sunrise paint the water in shades of gold and red. He was back on Earth, in a small coastal town in Korea where his family had lived for generations. His uniform was gone, replaced by simple civilian clothes. For the first time in decades, he had no duties to attend to, no orders to give. The war was over. He had led humanity through its darkest hour and brought them into the light. Now it was time to rest out. His communication device chimed softly. He glanced at the message and smiled slightly. It was from Yuna. Checking in, as she always did, Captain Yuna Beak was no longer commanding the Wrath of Terra. She had been promoted to fleet admiral and given command of the first joint peacekeeping force in galactic history. 50 human ships served alongside 50 alien vessels. Crews learning to work together despite centuries of mistrust dotted this moment. She was standing on the bridge of her new flagship, watching her mixed crew perform their duties. A human engineer worked beside a technician from the Crystal Collective, sharing tools and techniques. Pilot teams from 4 different species trained together in the simulation chambers. It was slow, difficult work. Old hatreds did not disappear overnight, but it was possible. That was the miracle. That was what humanity had proven. "Admiral," said her communications officer, a young alien who had volunteered for the joint program. "We are receiving a request from the Helix system. They are asking for assistance with refugee transport." Yuna considered the request. The Helix Dominion had collapsed after Ambassador Veka's arrest. Without its leadership, the species had fractured into competing factions, and millions of civilians were caught in the chaos. "Set course for the Helix system," she ordered, "and contact all ships in the fleet. We will need everyone for this operation." The crew responded without hesitation. Human and alien voices confirmed orders, coordinated movements, worked together as one. It was not perfect. There were still misunderstandings, moments of tension, cultural barriers that took patience to overcome. But they were trying. That was what mattered. On Nexus Prime, Lieutenant Wu Jingkang had taken a very different path. His voice, which had once delivered humanity's ultimatum to the galaxy, now spoke words of peace and cooperation. He had become the chief diplomatic envoy for the Terran Accords, responsible for negotiating treaties and resolving disputes between species. Today, he was meeting with representatives from 7 different civilizations, all of whom had claims to the same resource-rich asteroid belt. In the old days, such disputes would have been settled by whoever had the most powerful fleet. Now they sat around a table and talked. The resources will be shared according to need and contribution, Wien explained calmly. Each species will receive an allocation based on their population and their willingness to participate in joint mining operations. No one gets everything, but everyone gets something. One of the representatives, a tall being with 4 arms, slammed a hand on the table. This is unacceptable. My people have controlled this region for 300 years. Wujing did not raise his voice. Your people controlled it because you had more weapons than your neighbors. That system is over. We are building something new. He leaned forward slightly. You can be part of it, or you can be left behind. The choice is yours. The representative glared at him, but said nothing more. Eventually, they all signed the agreement. Progress was slow, but it was progress. Dr. Hannah Lim had returned to her research, though her focus had changed dramatically. She no longer hunted for evidence of alien crimes. Instead, she led a new institute dedicated to transparency and truth. Every secret agreement between species was being uncovered and made public. Every hidden archive was being opened. The darkness that had allowed the conspiracy against humanity was being driven away. By light, her latest project was an educational program designed for young people across the galaxy. It told the story of what had happened to humanity, not as propaganda, but as history. The truth, complete and unedited. Students from dozens of species were learning about the crimes of the old council and the importance of preventing such things from ever happening again. Knowledge is the best defense against tyranny. Hannah often said, when everyone knows the truth, no one can hide behind lies. General Sun Ho Choi had been given the task of dismantling the weapons that had been designed to destroy humanity. Biological agents, orbital bombardment platforms, planet-killing devices that the galaxy had built in secret, just in case. He destroyed them all, one by one, making sure they could never be used against anyone. But he also built. On every human colony that had suffered during the years of conspiracy, he constructed memorials. They were simple structures, walls of names and carved images, places where people could remember those who had died. 40,000 names on the memorial at New Helsinki, 12,000 more on Kepler Station, thousands of others scattered across a dozen worlds. The dead were not forgotten. They never would be. Historian Pela, who had tried to warn the Council about humanity, now traveled the galaxy sharing a different message. The ancient being spoke to packed audiences on hundreds of worlds, telling the story of a species that had been pushed to the brink of extinction and had risen stronger than ever. Do not fear humans, Pela would say. Fear what happens when you give them no choice. Treat them with respect, with honesty, with fairness, and you will find no better allies in the entire universe. It was a message that many were beginning to believe. On Earth, Admiral Taeon Park finished watching the sunrise and walked back toward his small house. Inside, his wife was preparing breakfast. They had been married for 30 years, but had spent most of that time apart while he served humanity's cause. Now, finally, they could be together. There is a message for you, she said, handing him a cup of tea. From the new council. They want to name a day after you. Taeon Park Day, celebrated across the galaxy. He shook his head slowly. Tell them no, are you sure? I did not do this for glory. None of us did. He sat down at the table, looking out the window at the peaceful morning. We did it because we had no choice. Because they pushed us until we could not be pushed anymore. I do not want to be celebrated for that. I want to be forgotten so that the galaxy can move forward. His wife smiled and touched his hand. You will not be forgotten. Even if there are no holidays or statues, People will remember what you did, how you gave humanity its place among the stars. Tan thought about that for a long moment. The years of secret preparation, the battles fought, the lives lost, the victory that had seemed impossible until it was won. Perhaps, he said finally, but I hope they remember something more important. I hope they remember that we did not become monsters, that we won our war and then chose peace, that we proved humanity could be better than those who tried to destroy us. He looked at the sky, where distant stars were still visible despite the growing light. That is the real victory. Not the battle we won, but the future we are building. A galaxy where every species has dignity, where no one is contained or controlled or quietly murdered, where the mistakes of the past are not repeated. He smiled, and for the first time in decades, the weight of command was truly gone from his shoulders. Let them remember that. On Nexus Prime, in the chamber where the Galactic Council had once ruled with arrogance and secrecy, a new monument had been erected. It showed a human hand reaching upward, grasping stars. Around its base, in every language known to galactic civilization, were carved the same words. We came in peace. You chose war. We finished it. Millions visited the monument every year. They came from every corner of the galaxy, representing thousands of species. They came to see what humanity had built from the ashes of their betrayal. They came to understand the price of underestimation. And somewhere among them, a young alien child asked their parent a question. Why did they fight so hard? The humans. Why did they not give up? The parent looked at the monument, at the hand reaching for the stars, and gave the only answer that made sense. Because they are human. And humans never stop fighting for their future. The child nodded, not fully understanding but accepting the answer. They would learn more as they grew older. The whole galaxy would learn. Humanity had arrived, and the universe would never be the same.